My name is Ron. I'm one of the co-founders of Koinos Group, the inventors of the Koinos blockchain. We started working on Koinos in 2020. Our mission is to accelerate decentralization through accessibility. We believe that the blockchain space, crypto space, the Web3 space can't evolve any further unless we give people the user experiences that they already know and love. We like to say, if you had to pay a penny every time you use the internet, would it have been successful? We feel that the answer is no. So we created Koinos, and Koinos is the world's first free-to-use blockchain. We integrated some features that we feel will make it easier for developers to deliver that free-to-use experience to end users and to onboard normal users to blockchain and cryptocurrency Web3. So some of the other features that we worked into the chain was in-band upgradability. We did a decentralized launch like Bitcoin. We didn't ICO. The core features that we built into the blockchain are designed to help developers deliver that free use experience. We have something we call universal language support for smart contracts, and currently you can develop in TypeScript and C++, but other languages can be added in the future. So this is the Koinos Supercharger event. We feel that you can supercharge your web application by adding the power of Koinos and blockchain and smart contracts to a Web2 application. We think that you don't necessarily have to go and build a complete Web3 application, although you can. Right away. You can start out by using the skills that you already have to build a web application, add smart contracts to your web application to kind of supercharge it. What we'll be going over today is our getting started workshop. So we'll go through setting up the development environment. We'll create a very basic hello world smart contract through a boilerplate. We'll publish that smart contract to the blockchain, and then we'll read that information from the blockchain. If you want to connect with us, the best places to connect with us is probably on Discord. If you go to koinos.io, there's a whole bunch of information there, including the white paper and a link to our Discord, Telegram, our Twitter. Also, we're pretty active on that. With that being said, should I jump in, or is there something else that we need to talk about?
I think we can jump in.
All right, cool. So let me see if I can hide this thing. All right. So here's where I broke this down into 4 steps. So we'll set up the dev environment. We'll need Node.js. We'll install Proto-C because we're using Google's protocol buffers. We'll install Yarn to do the package management. A side note is that we need to use Yarn 1.22 for right now to work with the AssemblyScript SDK CLI. So we'll switch over to that. It's relatively easy if you have the latest Yarn installed. And then we'll install the Koinos CLI that'll allow us to interact with the Koinos blockchain. There's a difference between the SDK assembly CLI, AssemblyScript CLI, and the Koinos CLI. The AssemblyScript CLI helps you develop the smart contracts and build the boilerplates. The Koinos CLI is a tool to interact with the blockchain. That's how we'll upload the contract to the blockchain. That's also where we'll have the tokens. It can act as a wallet. And then we'll sign up for a free Koinos Pro account, which is the product that we're launching, which will give us an API key that will allow us to interact with the blockchain. Some of this stuff I've already set up ahead of time, so we don't have a lot of hiccups, but I'll go through and show you how to do that. And then we'll create the Hello World smart contract, which is built into the CLI. And we'll use the SDK to generate the boilerplate. We'll build the contract. We'll test the contract to see that everything works well. And then we'll publish the contract to the blockchain. I'll go through about how to create a wallet, to connect to the test net. We have a faucet on Discord that you can get 100 tokens, I think, every hour, which a test token. I've already done that, but I'll show you how to do that. And we'll upload the smart contract and ABI file to the blockchain. And then we'll verify that by using Koinos Block, which is a block explorer, to interact with the smart contract. And at the end, I think we might also use the Koinos CLI to interact with the smart contract and read the information that we uploaded. So without further ado, we'll get started. We have a website called learnkoinos.xyz. There's a lot of information on there. This getting started tutorial we'll walk through comes from here. This explains a little bit about developing on Koinos. We'll run through all of these things and as we move along. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure we have Node installed, and I already have Node installed on here, and it's version 18.17. We recommend that you stay with the stable version of Node. The next thing that we'll need to do is install the Google protocol buffers, which is on Windows. I chose Windows specifically because it's a little bit more difficult on Windows than Linux or Mac. So to install the protocol buffers, we could follow this tutorial. And this will ask us to go to the protocol buffers releases on GitHub. I'm using the stable release, which is 23.4. You would just go here and download the files to your computer. There's a little bit of hoops to jump through. Once you download the Proto C file, I created a directory in the root, which is I called it Proto C, and the executable is in the bin file. And then you'll have to go to your environment variables and add that to your path. So I added that right here. And you'll also have to, I think you just add it to the path. In the instructions, it says to add it to the system variable, which I did, but I found that if you just add it to the path, it works fine. And the way you would test that is you just run, you just run Proto C version. And if you see the version, then you see that it's installed and working. The reason that we're using protocol buffers is to add multiple programming language support. And that's how we were able to add the AssemblyScript or TypeScript SDK. So then the next step is to add the SDK from the Koinos repo. And then you would just run yarn global add Koinos SDK CLI. I can run through it. I've already added it. So I'm not sure if it's necessary. But once that's added, we can move on to the next step, which is creating the Hello World project. Oh, the only other thing that I need to mention is that we're using Yarn to do this. At this point, it's best to use Yarn. And my Yarn version is 1.22.19. If you have like Yarn 2 or Yarn 3 installed, you can easily, so you can easily move back to what they call the classic version, 1.22.19, by running the command yarn set version classic. And then that'll move you back to the 1.22.19, which at this point is required to be able to use the CLI. So once all of those things are installed, we can move into creating the Hello World project. The SDK generates a boilerplate that allows you to create the smart contract very, very easily. So let me do this. Let me see that yeah. So we can run this, and it just generated the boilerplate here. Oops. All right. Once we go into here, we can go into VS Code and see our hierarchy here. We'll go back. Oops. We'll go back to the command line, and we'll just run through here. So after you run this command and it generates the boilerplate code, we would run this command, which installs and builds and tests at the same time. But I'm going to run through it command by command. So I think if you just run yarn and you don't have to do install, it'll just install the dependencies. This will take a couple of seconds. And then it'll allow us to build the boilerplate smart contract. So this is basically the boilerplate smart contract. If you're not familiar with protocol buffers, you define the messages here, and then once you run the CLI, it'll create the boilerplate TypeScript files for you, which are here. Let me go back to here. We'll go through that afterwards. So now I've created, it installed the dependencies. Now we can run yarn, build, debug. And now we're going to build a smart contract that's included in the boilerplate. This is just a hello world smart contract, which returns it'll return the term hello plus whatever else, whatever other variable you send to it. So it'll live on the blockchain, and once you call it and give it a parameter, it'll return hello plus the parameter. So now that it's built, we can run, there's also testing built into the CLI, and we can run yarn test, and it'll test our smart contract to make sure that there are no errors. And again, this all is generated automatically. We go to the test and look at the test here. We see that it's just looking for the hello and arguments, and then if it returns hello world, the test has passed. Let's see, so it's completed and it's 100% tested. Again, if you want to go more in depth into this, I would highly recommend running through this on the learnkoinos.xyz website, and you can take your time and really go through it line by line and understand things a little bit better. This goes through the folder structure and the ABI directory, the assembly directory, what the files are and what they mean, and what's included in each file. I'm not going to run through this. I think it's relatively self-explanatory. And then once we get through the build and debug, we want to compile the smart contract for to be able to upload it to the blockchain. So we'll run yarn build release. And normally you would go in and edit the proto file and then add some TypeScript code, add the functionality to your smart contract, test it, then you would build it, and it would compile. It compiles down to a WASM file plus an ABI file, which both have to be uploaded to the blockchain in order to be able to interact with them. All right, once that's done, it'll generate these two files, a contract.wasm and my awesome contract.abi. We can see them here. This is our release, and this is our contract.wasm file. And then in the ABI folder, we'll be able to find the ABI file. So now we'll move into installing the Koinos CLI. Oh, sorry. I already took the time to install it. All you'd have to do is go to our GitHub page, and not that we want to install this Koinos CLI. And in the releases, you'll see we have a Linux, Mac OS, and Windows versions. We have the source code here. What you would do is just download the binary, and I usually put it in a different folder where I can easily access it. It also includes, I think I have it open over here. It also includes something called the Koinos RC file, which will set up the parameters for interacting with the wallet. Because we're working on a test application, we want to be using the Harbinger testnet. We don't want to be on mainnet. Normally, this is the RC file that you would want to have, which will connect you to the mainnet. We're using the Koinos Pro API, so you would have to go to koinos.pro and create an account. Once you create an account, you'll be able to generate an API key, and you can use that API key when you're interacting either with the testnet or mainnet. Once all of that is done, we can go back to the terminal and then open up the Koinos CLI. Okay, that worked. So I already created a wallet and went to the Discord bot, faucet bot, and added 100 tokens, 100 test tokens to this wallet. So to create a wallet, you just give it a name and a password. Don't use the word password, even though I'm using the word password. And now the wallet is created and you have an address. This is your public address. You can interact with this wallet in many different ways. You can say, you can get the balance, which right now should be 0. There's a bunch of different other commands that you can do here. Let me open, I think I called it my.wallet. And then we look at the coin balance and we see 100 T coins. So the way that the Koinos blockchain works, the way that we achieve the feelessness is through a mechanism called mana. Each token, each coin token contains a property called mana, and that gets used up as you interact on the network. So you do have to hold the tokens in order to interact with the network. The tokens don't get used up as you interact on the network, the mana gets used up. The mana gets recharged after 5 days. So you don't lose tokens, you lose basically an opportunity cost, which is, if you had tokens, and let's say you had 100 tokens and you interacted with the network and you used up 3 tokens on mana, you would only be able to use 97 of your tokens to do anything else. And on top of that, if let's say you were transferring tokens, you would not be able to transfer the entire 97 tokens because you would have to use some mana in order to transfer the tokens. So maybe you use 96 tokens. But after a period of 5 days, those 3 or 4 tokens would get unlocked and then they're usable again. So you do have to hold some tokens. The mana is delegatable, so you can actually pay for someone else's mana. The idea is that developers would create these applications where they would delegate mana to their users. The developers would hold the tokens, they would delegate the mana to their users, and their users could have a completely free user experience. The other side of that is if you require that your users hold tokens and they pay their own mana. So once we do this, we let me go back to here. So we created the wallet. I got the address. I already went to the faucet and used my address to claim the free test tokens. And we verified that we have some tokens. Now we can upload the smart contract to the blockchain, and the command is very self-explanatory. It's upload. It uploads the WASM file and the ABI file to the blockchain, and it associates that contract with the address of the uploading wallet. So this address will be associated with. Sorry. Oh. First problem, sorry. Oh, okay. Here. Sorry, it's hard for me to see. All right, this should do it. Okay, so now the contract was uploaded to the blockchain. We have a transaction ID and it's associated with our address. We can verify that by copying our address and that's not gonna work. And going to the block explorer, Koinos blocks. And then looking at our address, and then you should see here in a moment. Oh, my bad. We need to be looking at the test nets. So here's our smart contract that we just uploaded. It says hello, and if you enter a string here and you read the smart contract, the response you get is hello world. I might be able to do this again. So right now it's interacting with the smart contract on the blockchain. I think. Yeah, I think that concludes. You can also do the same thing from the CLI here. So you can register. Oh, I need to get the address. All right, it's hard for me to see. And then we can register this address. We have to give it the name. And once the contract is registered, now we can interact with the smart contract through the CLI. So we can issue my OSM contract hello, and then we say and now it's reading from the CLI, it's reading from the blockchain, it's interacting with the smart contract. And that is the conclusion of the demonstration.